Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special late July edition of ADP Chasing. Sorry we're running late today. We've got special guest Kyle Dvorchak from Roto-World joining us, and we're going to break down a bunch of training camp news. Kendre Miller, is it over? DJ Chark rising for some reason, and we'll find out which wide receiver we're going to compare to T. Higgins to today. Let's do it.
ADP chasing is for when you watch ship chasing, you go, these guys are just football guys.
And the targets per outrun leagues, that's going to be really nice.
Actually, back in if it's Ashane.
Stare into our crystal ball. Close your eyes. You know, all your entries are going to lose anyway.
Yeah, that's fair.
This is a Deuce Vaughn show.
It's anti-cabal. It's anti the best ball thought leaders. I'm obviously lying to some degree because, like, I have a lot of both of these guys.
It's the most disgusting pick you can make. But, man. How we doing, fellas?
Doing good.
I love coming on this show because I only listen to it in podcast form, so I don't get to see any of the video stuff. And truly, this is a visual art form, as I'm learning when I get to watch the intro. Oh man, the intro is really good.
It's a good reminder.
It's too good.
It's a good reminder to audio listeners for us.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think we're the only podcast that consistently talks about the intro to the podcast every single time. So I'm sure the audio listeners are really loving that one. But yeah, we're not going to stop.
Just constantly talking about how good our intro. The opening bit is always just, man, this is a good intro to our
Is our YouTube views more valuable though? Because like maybe this is just a good conversion metric to get the audio listeners to come to the video listener. I'd hope David, you're nodding your head, so I assume they're more like
much like probably 10x as valuable as an audio listener.
Okay, there you go. That's a good little teaser.
Shades. Crane, do you have the analytics on how many what the breakdown is of audio to video listeners on the show? I never looked into that.
I don't. I need to log into the YouTube and
I can.
We're really serving our audience. We have no idea.
I can tell you from my stuff that it's about 10% of the people listen to the stuff audio only from my stuff compared to a YouTube stream. So it's enough. It's enough that they're still there. They're still there. You got to service the audio.
I think we'd be much higher than that. Would be my gut on this because ship chasing did start as a true podcast. Yeah,
I'm the same way. I listen to ship chasing as a podcast.
You forgot about ship chasing?
Yeah.
No, I think I was an early ship chasing adopter, but I don't think I was early enough that I started when it was only podcast form. I think I started as a video listener in ship chasing.
That makes sense. Yeah, because I mean we've been kind of video primary since for several years, 3-4 years, maybe more.
Yeah. Well, anyways, to service audio listeners, a little preview of today's show. Obviously, we have with Kyle joining. He does great work at Roto-World and helps Pat out over at Leg Up with the rankings and that sort of thing. So excited to get his perspective today. We're going to be just doing a classic risers and fallers ADP chasing show. Nothing special today. So we'll start here diving into the risers. And before I even talk about the players, getting back to always talking about our intro, it's funny when you look at the intro and you see like the percent change in ADPs. There's like, from the preseason stuff, it's always like minus 50% change in ADP, like plus 60%. Like there's that on the graphics. We're getting to still like a pretty stable point in the ADP movement where like none of these are massive movements. So wanted to start off with that. These are all like relatively minor movements still in ADP. But the first news here, Patrick Mahomes up a couple spots. I don't have an exact reason for the news behind this. Davis, to get inside the head of a Chiefs drafter, what's the rationale here for Mahomes?
I actually think it's a couple different things. I mean, the first is Chiefs training camp is starting, and the highlights are all him throwing the ball like Mahomes rolling left off his wrong foot, launching it 70 yards over an outstretched defender to, your favorite wide receiver. There's been a good Hollywood one. There's been a good Worthy one. There's been a good Rice one. There's been a good Kelsey one for all of them. I also think you get in that range and you're like, there's been a macro trend has been a little bit of pushback to the insane rise of the wide receivers. We'll see that as we go through. There are good wide receivers who are falling. So instead of taking Christian Kirk instead of taking Amari Cooper, you're like, why don't I just take the quarterback who's going to throw for 5,000 yards? That seems fun. But I think it's correlated to the Rashee Rice rise as well. I think those are kind of the inputs there.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I've been kind of on board generally with that strategy of like, once you get, once Tank Dell is off the board, maybe once Stephon Diggs is off the board, and you're in that Kirk, Amari range of wide receivers, I've been pretty pro like grabbing the elite quarterback, grabbing the Jalen Hurts, the Patrick Mahomes, those guys. I think the opportunity cost there is not as bad. But yeah, curious, Kyle, your take. What has been your approach to Mahomes and maybe the cluster of elite quarterbacks that kind of go around that, 5th round, 4th round range there on underdog?
Yeah, I was going to say, I still draft a lot of the wide receivers in that range, which is true. But I was like, I also do draft the running backs, or I do draft the quarterbacks. And then it was because I couldn't name you what running backs go there. I have diverted like 100% of what would be like a normally distributed. I just take players at ADP, my running back potentially drafting, moving it to both wide receiver and to quarterback specifically, like the Lamar type of stack where you can get that. The same with the Josh Allen stack, the tight end plus quarterback stacks that go right around that range. So to me, I still think the wide receivers are fine picks. I do think you start to like lose some real fun upside once like Tank Dell basically is off the board. I think that's the right.
That's exactly
it.
That's
the kind of the cutoff. Yeah.
But Kirk is actually like, that's maybe not true. It's like, Pickens is young, really talented, and going to have like a 45% air yard share. You have to squint to see it because like, Jesus Christ, I don't want to draft Arthur Smith players, but like, he seems young and good at football, and those guys tend to have a lot of upside. But I do agree that in general, like the grouping of those guys is Amari Cooper, lock him in for never more than 1,200, but like never less than 1,000. It's probably true again this year. Like I'm out on the idea that Deshaun Watson can never be what he was again, but he can probably still be good enough to make Amari Cooper, who's extremely talented, a 1,200-yard receiver. Christian Kirk, he's good. He's pretty good at football, but he's probably not ever going to, he's 100% just never going to be great. So even though the upside is gone, the way receivers are drafted, the floor is also gone in like 2 more rounds where you're like, oh.
Yeah, but that 2 more rounds thing is kind of the important part of it, where I think Mahomes is very defensible in the 4th with Kelsey in the 3rd, and I think you want to start receiver, but then you go Kelsey, Mahomes, and you have the 5th and 6th now you're not going to get the 7th. Right, the 7th is maybe you can get Jameson. Keon used to fall there. I don't think that's going to keep happening. He's had some positive buzz, so you're kind of to Sutton or whatever, and that's to me a clear tier break. So you have to go. It kind of only works as receiver, Kelsey, Mahomes, receiver. Hopefully, one of those next 2 receivers is a Chief. But I think that works.
Let me tell you, if you draft that team 900 times, you're going to find a winner in there somewhere. At least that's my operational thesis.
Well, there's a lot of things we won't know for sure this season, but that's one of them we will know for sure. That will have been fully explored, that part of the game tree.
Yeah, if that part of the game tree is what you need, I am extremely well positioned in the slow puppy. Like really couldn't be better positioned in the slow puppy if that's what you need to win.
Yeah. But I think because Mahomes it's been a struggle for me. I was like looking, I think I have like 3% Mahomes or something in all my drafts. Now I'm higher in Best Ball Mania because I've made getting some of him a priority. But even then I was below market, and I was like, I don't like this. It's a good price on Mahomes. Even in the 4th, it's totally fine. I'm expecting them to bounce back, to really lean into the pass a lot more than they did last year. So last night I did one where I went Kelsey. Now I got sniped on both Worthy and Rice coming back, which is annoying. And I think Rice.
Who'd you take in round 18? The people need to know who was your round 18 shitter on the Kansas City Chiefs.
Deneric Prince
over instead of Tony.
Oh yeah, over Tony. Yeah.
I thought we were going to get the first.
Oh God! Oh hell no! Wouldn't have taken there.
No, let's see. I might have even done 17th round. Deneric Prince. Let's see. Let me see if I can.
Have you guys heard of this Nick Remigio guy? What's his deal?
No, so I did. I have been sadly trying to learn Nico Remigio. I think this is a real Justin Watson-ass player. Like not going to be a guy who is.
Yeah. Okay.
He could make the roster. I do want to.
It was 18th round, but I did grab Prince on that.
I'm just worried that like with the Tony thing, what I'm worried about is like his tryout at running back is like the last thing you see before you get cut. And I'm stealing that joke a little bit from
what percentage was that?
But
that was 3% Kadarius Toney.
Oh, that's way too high. That's so much.
So that tells you that 3% of the time I've gotten there with the Mahomes team at the end without having Rashi, Worthy, Brown, Pacheco, or Kelsey, and then like.
But I had Kelsey, so I was good.
Oh yeah. Okay, then yeah.
I was fine, totally but I added Prince as an additional bet, and I think Prince is kind of interesting right now. So.
Prince I think is a really good round 18 guy right now. Like, I mean, I think the death of CEH a little overstated. You know, the idea of like he's gonna make the team. He's just gonna be kind of your very boring.
Yeah.
That's the thing is there's no one could possibly get excited about Clyde Edwards-Helaire at this stage, including the Chiefs themselves.
You think death of possibly the worst running back in the league has been overstated?
Let's table. We'll get to CEH. We'll get to CEH in the fall or stuff. We'll have that full debate. Let's table that for a second. I'm curious, going back to Mahomes, like what do we think the odds are that Mahomes can get back to the 5,000 yard, 45 plus TD seasons that we saw a couple times early in his career? Because he was like very far away from that last year. Curious, Kyle, like, do you think this wide receiver upgrade that we got in the offseason is good enough that Mahomes should be like considered, I don't know, a favorite or a decent odds bet to make it back to that type of ceiling?
Yeah, I mean, I guess like if the question is the over under is set at 5,000 yards, and like what odds am I taking the under? Like I'd probably confidently take the under, but that's because that's a crazy high number. What are his odds relative to? I mean, he has to have the highest odds of like anyone in the league to hit 5,000, right? Like given that guys like Josh.
I gotta correct Sam here real quick. Just he said earlier in his career, like Mahomes in 2022 did not throw for 5,300 yards and 41 touchdowns and win MVP. Literally 2 seasons ago.
I was thinking of his 2018 because I think that was the touchdown peak. But yes, you're right. He got to 5,150 his first year as a starter. So yeah, those are like the retro like Drew Brees, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning type numbers. And like, I don't know, maybe you're right. It hasn't been that long since Mahomes basically did that in 2022, but it almost feels like because no one really got close to that last year. In my head, I'm like, oh, it's so hard to do that, but I don't know.
This is another thing I've been wanting to talk about on the show. Gretsch talked about this on his when he went on the Athletic show, but like the idea that all of these incredibly talented quarterbacks are just going to be happy to dink and fucking dunk all over the field. Like, so they've been talking about this with Burrow. Obviously, we saw this happen with Josh Allen last year. We super saw it with the Chiefs. I really wonder, like, does the NFL want this? Like, it just, like, another year of this just seems so depressing. Is there anything we can do? Like, could Joe Biden sign an executive order or something? Like, do you think these teams I think the Chiefs are clearly not planning on playing that way.
No, I don't think so either. Yeah.
Agreed.
But I'm wondering the corresponding thing with the Bengals and the Bills specifically. Like, do you guys, I kind of get the sense that these quarterbacks are sick of playing that way too, but that might be,
well, I also think that my feeling on this stuff, even at kind of the height of the too high,
apocalypse.
Yeah, which was really more like the end of the 2022 season. I feel like is when we had the true too high apocalypse. We're kind of coming out of it a little bit, and my feeling is that the offense always has the advantage because they dictate what's going to happen, and the defense has to react. Now the defense got really good at reacting to a specific type of thing that was happening very successfully for years, but like some of this, like the cheat motion isn't like that's a tactic. It's not like going to solve everything. But I think is like an example of like, oh yeah, they're going to come up with stuff that keeps, the wrinkles aren't going to stop. And like, what's Andy Reid going to do? Like, what's Xavier Worthy cheat motion going to look like in an Andy Reid offense? Is that going to help unlock explosive plays? The offense is always going to be looking to unlock explosive plays in a lot of creative ways.
Yeah.
We don't know what those ways are, but I'm going to count on Andy Reid, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay to come up with new ways year over year. And I know that there's going to be like downswings when the defense kind of has the upper hand, but I don't I just think like the nature of what's happening, where one side is scheming up stuff and the other side is then scheming up the way to stop that, will give the offense kind of advantages at various points of that cycle.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like undeniably true about the progress of football as a whole, is that it's not a perfectly linear trend, but like you look at the way that point scoring has gone and the trend is upward, even if there is always going to be these like little local minimas where defenses make good adjustments and they can truly find an advantage that they didn't have over offenses, but those can only last so long given the structure of football as a competitive game.
I think that's a good point. I mean, last year just felt so horrible because like the Bills were getting terrible results. Joe Burrow got injured. Mahomes was not playing well. Lamar kept getting, the Ravens were so good. The Ravens definitely belong in this discussion, but we don't talk about them that way because their defense has been so good. Well, they've had Lamar for most of it. I'm wondering if that doesn't happen this year. I'm wondering if very sneaky the Cardinals are part of this as well. Like that, I've been, for obvious reasons, tracking Cardinals camp very close, and everyone around the team seems like insanely hyped about the offense. Like the offense seems to be clicking on all cylinders very early for the Cardinals. So I'm hoping that we get out of these local minimums and that we find,
yeah.
And I'm feeling
part of it might just be optimism for me, like that I want to kind of, be optimistic about offense. But at the same time, like some of what we talk about is like a good offensive season versus a bad offensive season. Like the Chiefs, not having any receivers, leaning on the run down the stretch, Travis Kelce not being at 100%, and they're saving him for the playoffs. Like that, just that alone, like the Chiefs not being the Chiefs kind of has an impact on our perception of things.
It does.
The fact that Marcus Valdes-Scantling like might not be ahead of Tyrell Shavers now on the Bills gives you a sense of how bad things really were for the Chiefs last year.
I mean, the three wide receivers who led them in snaps last year outside of Rashee Rice are like might not make the roster. Like right. Sky Moore might not make the roster. Hardman might not make the roster.
On a rookie deal. Guys might get cut on rookie deals.
It's so bad.
It's so bad.
Yeah. It really is.
I agree. I think individually you can definitely poke holes in Worthy, Marquise Brown, even Rashee Rice. You can poke holes in all of them. Like none of them I expect to be top 12 NFL talents, but it's just undeniable that they're massive upgrades.
But in the
what they had last year, yeah. And if one of them hits big, I mean, that's all you need. Plus Kelce was so banged up last year, so yeah, I think it's going to be hard for Mahomes to be as bad as he was last year. It's not like he was terrible last year. It's just that the weapons were really I don't know. There's not a starting NFL team that has really worse weapons than what Mahomes had last year, besides maybe the Patriots or the Chargers this year. Like it was really, truly awful.
And he won a Super Bowl. Like that's the other part of this, is that he's still Mahomes. Yeah. Like they did not go away from Mahomes. They went away from Kadarius Toney playing volleyball and, batting the ball to the opponents. Like it's pretty clear like why last year played out the way it did, and they kind of ran bad on some stuff too. Like Toney is athletic and can get separation. Unfortunately, he's not a good receiver, but like they bet that he was. It didn't work out. Like,
Corinne, did you read the article that there was a Toney kind of feature this week, and there was an anecdote about them. I don't remember which game it was, the one that he blew.
That doesn't really narrow it down.
It was the Chargers game that he blew, I believe. But there was an anecdote about how Mahomes in the huddle is telling everyone ball security.
Yeah. Oh, I saw this.
All you got to do, and then Toney gives it to the defense, and there's the clip of him on the sideline going, "I just fucking said it." I mean, really incredible stuff. Yeah. Really incredible stuff from K. Toney.
I don't know that I've ever seen Mahomes that angry. He's pretty level-headed.
He's pretty, he is pretty, Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's so I'm hoping that's your weekly scheduled Chiefs talk. I mean, we don't have to do much more than that. I think we all know where we're at there.
How hyped are you on Deneric Prince? Can we get that?
Let's save that. We have CHS.
Okay, we're going to save it.
Let's save it.
Yeah. So second biggest riser here, Audric Estime, up 12 spots. This is kind of like a lag from last week's news. He's back healthy, practicing in camp. The Javonte news cycle has kind of been up and down.
Javonte is going to be a riser when we do this next week.
I'm sure he probably will.
I think he will.
But yeah, I don't know. I've said my 2 cents on this situation. I'm curious, Kyle, how you've been playing. Starting with Estime, do you think he's target in the 190s? Do you think it's too fragile of a pick, as a 5th round rookie that hasn't proven much? Curious how you're approaching that situation.
Yeah, I've been mostly hammering Javonte. He seems absurdly cheap for the likely role he has. And then we get the positive comments from Sean Payton, the report of him and P. Ryan fighting for a roster spot. I shouldn't even call it a report. That's not sort of the speculation is really what it was. Seemed not entirely improbable, but pretty improbable. And it seems to be that that's the case. I think the beat writers have all kind of been circling the drain on it does make sense for them to cut P. Ryan. It's not that it's a guarantee, but it does seem at this point, I would say it is more
like
like
the wagons. I think they were circling the wagons there.
Well, I think that
P. Ryan's time with the team is circling the drain. Let me tell you.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, P. Ryan's circling the drain.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not impossible that he stays with the team, but I would take better than 50-50 that he is gone. And I think I've questioned you in our Discord on this, Pat, and I think RotoPat started questioning me on the last Roto World Football show. Is what do you win when you win with Javonte? If P. Ryan's out of the question,
you win a lot.
You win a lot there. I do think if Javonte stays or if P. Ryan stays on the roster, yeah, maybe there's not as fun of a win scenario because they trust P. Ryan in pass pro, and he was legitimately efficient in the confines of what they were asking him to do in terms of yards per out run. If he's out of the picture, Javonte is healthier and in better shape. They were talking about him just staying up late and eating snacks all night. And he's like, yeah, I started treating my body like I'm a professional athlete, and now I've lost some weight. Yeah, maybe that's going to work out in the long run, given that you are quite literally a professional athlete. I now see that there's a very clear what do you win when you win path, because as Gretch has talked about, this is an offense where we know the backfield as a whole will have a ton of fantasy points. We just need them to be distributed in the right way. Where last year they're distributed in the most unexciting way, where P. Ryan was locking you in for 8 points and never more than 12, but Javonte wasn't efficient enough to do much else. I think there's a real potential for a shift in the way the points are just distributed this year.
The other thing is
was getting a bunch of the high value touches to ruin it even more.
Yeah, and I mean the other thing about Denver is that last year they were in this situation where they couldn't lean on their quarterback to really truly carry the offense, and the receivers weren't very high caliber. Then they replaced a veteran quarterback with Bo Nix, and the receivers got worse. They lost Judy, which I think you have to say, going from Judy to a 4th round Troy Franklin, even though I'm excited about him, and Josh Reynolds, that's a downgrade. So there's even more incentive this year to pass to the running backs a bunch. And you have a quarterback in Nix who, what is his biggest knock? It's that he just does short designed throws, a lot of screens. I mean, this is set up for there to be a ton of running back targets. So I agree with P. Ryan. If P. Ryan's gone, who's doing the pass protection? I think it's Javonte. I think he's the guy, because otherwise it's a rookie day 3 2-down banger and Estime that really makes no sense, or Jaleel McLaughlin, who they talked about is the biggest impediment to him even seeing the field was pass protection, and he's an undersized back. Now, I think he can get better in pass protection and earn more trust, but is he going to be the dedicated pass protector? No, he's not. So Javonte, if P. Ryan is cut, you have this potential to get the 3rd down back plus maybe the early down lead back. That's the high value touches right there.
Yeah.
That
it makes sense. I certainly agree with the point that when you dig into the details, the Denver backfield is more attractive than it looks on the surface. But I still think it's important to remember, especially on a half PPR website,
they're a bad team.
We're talking about a team that's, by projected team totals to score the 2nd least in the NFL this year. And it's still, I think, even if P. Ryan is gone, quite likely to be a 3-way split. So I do understand there's ways that plays out for Javonte. Maybe his role is bigger than expected. They phase out, Estime or McLaughlin. Maybe one of those guys get hurt and he can absorb the touches. But I don't know. I think like at the end of the day, like you can get the Dallas backfield at cheaper prices than Javonte. You can take stabs at the Chargers backfield. You can take stabs at the Bengals backfield and Chase Brown at cheaper than Javonte. I just think there's like more, even though this
I actually don't even think that's true. Like if you want Chase Brown today, you got to take him over Javonte.
Well, okay. Yeah, but Dallas, you can get multiple rounds. Like I think at the end of the day, like
why is that?
Cowboys running backs. The Cowboys running backs are going to be a much better half PPR fantasy target than the Broncos backs. Like,
well, maybe, but I mean, yeah, the pie. If we're playing Dallas running back as a player, then yeah. But I mean, who consolidates? Dowdle is like my third or fourth highest drafted player, so I'm praying it's Dowdle. But I mean, you do have with Javonte of all the backs that we're talking about on the two teams, he's the best bet to consolidate, right?
Yeah, he's also just the best bet to be good. Where like obviously like running back, is not nearly as like talent driven of a position as wide receiver is. So I don't want to rely solely on the fact that he's probably of the sort of guys we're talking about right now, the talent ceiling is highest, but like it is the highest by a meaningful margin. Like by probably an extreme margin. And the guys who have the highest talent ceiling that aren't him are on his team. So that would be, there could also be a winner somewhere else on that team. Like there's really just not a universe in which Zeke is a extremely talented player anymore. I mean, it just is not possible. Maybe like Chase Brown, but we're talking like, he ain't going to be this cheap. He's not this cheap by the time you're listening to it. So, among just the Gus Edwards, that backfield and the Dallas backfield, and also that's only 2 of 32 backfield. So I actually think all of these teams are targets. When you can consolidate a lot of touches on any of these teams for extremely cheap, I do want to be targeting all these. I think the more apt comparison is like, well, do we really want to be consolidating touches for Rashod White, who's probably not good on the Bucks? No. If those guys are that expensive, like yeah, he's probably going to get a lot of touches. He's also not very good. Like, when you have to pay that much for a guy and your argument is he could consolidate touches, I don't love it. When it's Javonte, who's cheap, or Zeke, who I also think is a perfectly fine pick, like those are the guys I want to cheaply consolidate touches with. I just don't want to do it expensively. And I don't think it has to be Javonte versus Zeke. Teams I think are really strong when you do this multiple times.
Yeah, I think the only way to kind of misplay Javonte is to then not take Jaleel and then not take any Estime and just like zero in.
Jaleel is the one that I'm out on now. Jaleel at like running back 45 or whatever. I mean, he is a fun player and he definitely is going to have a couple giga spikes. But like, I don't even know if he's
cool. Stop.
I mean, honestly, if you're right about that, then he's a smash at ADP. Like that's what that's it.
What is a giga spike for Jaleel McLaughlin? Like I think 6 catches for 46 yards. Yeah,
like it's like a Wandale spike, like 19.4.
You had me at 6 catches. I was like, go on.
Estime is clearly to me right now the best pick of the three of them on underdog. I mean, he is huge. He weighs 225 pounds. This is cheating.
I mean, that's the exact same weight as Javonte, to be clear. Like it's 5 pounds heavier, but
Sean not anymore. Javonte dropped a bunch of weight.
No, Peyton said he got down to 220, 221, which means he was playing.
How much was he before?
Was he playing at like 240?
Good.
I know.
God.
Peyton said the target weight for him is in the it was 220 or 221 is what he said. So like he was playing large last year.
Do you guys want to do some classic Davis Maddox cheating?
Yes.
Okay, for a point, Sam, can you present my screen?
Yeah.
This is some classic Davis Maddox cheating. So these are the RotoViz sim scores for Estime with his draft capital not plugged in.
Oh, wow.
TJ Yeldon, Jonathan Stewart, Mark Ingram, Derrick Henry, David Montgomery, Sean Green, Jeremy Hill. Just classic classic goal line backs, early down grinders, whatever.
Yeah, these pass the vibe test. Like these absolutely I could. Yeah. I mean,
no, obviously.
Can you plug in the draft capital here, Davis?
No. The draft capital doesn't matter anymore.
Just plug it in just to see real quick.
No, a fifth round pick in 2024 is like a second round pick.
Plug in a late third round pick from, and we'll.
I'll
include. We're not going to plug that in. We got 2 rounds. Is that not enough?
I'll put in 80.
Yeah.
Just see what it does.
Put in 80.
I think it'll be interesting. Not as good. Not as good. A couple.
As good. This is awful.
Kendre Miller's on this list. That turned
No,
out
these
well,
were
right?
these were a couple guys who had moments, which is all you want from Estime. You want.
Yeah, Hassan Haskins. I'll never forget that moment.
Here's the deal with Audric Estime. You want Audric Estime to qualify for remember that guy when we're doing this show in 6 years. That's what you want from Audric Estime.
Honestly, Stephen Ridley would be a pretty big hit.
Pretty big. Yeah,
I would take Stephen Ridley. Although I don't know that he did anything this list is kind of interesting because even Montgomery,
none of these guys hit as rookies.
Yeah, he got there on volume, but he was like real bad. And then his second year, he added some efficiency. So it's kind of interesting list. Makes you wonder a little bit if maybe the play is ultimately just Javonte, but we can move on.
Yeah. Let's move on. I feel like even Broncos fans have to be so weirded out by how much the fantasy community talks about their backfield. They're like, "Are you guys sure we should be spending 30 minutes on every show talking about the Denver Broncos backfield? Are you sure about this? We looked into this."
They're so confused.
They are. I've been DMing Denver beat writers, and they're like, I mean, you guys know the quarterbacks can't complete a pass, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're aware that this is a quarterback competition that Zach Wilson is involved in, which, by the way, I've read every report that has come out of Broncos camp for this exact reason. The amount of Zach Wilson might start week 1. It's a lot higher than you want it to be. It is
Peyton just said they're about to narrow the quarterback competition. That strikes me as, guys, we've done it. We've ruled out Zach Wilson.
Okay, yeah,
that's good.
That's got to be ruling out Zach Wilson. But no, I'm sure the offense designed around screen passes to Javonte Williams for Bo Nix, that's gonna work really well.
It's gonna work really well for Javonte Williams.
Yeah, no, yeah. He'll be the RB 27, 12 points per game.
Great.
That'll be really cool.
It will be cool.
Yeah.
You get him at like pick 115.
Yeah, no, that'll be great. I'm sure that'll be a really fun pick. Let's move on to talk about DJ Chark, who is up 12 spots for some reason. Well, the reason is that he's running ahead of Quentin Johnston in 3 wide receiver stats right now. So
this is not 100% accurate, by the way. This is another team that I've completely been scouring on. So that's not 100% true. QJ has been with the ones plenty. The way Harbaugh's doing thing is the starters are playing snaps with Easton Stick. Also, the Chargers beat writers seem to be one of the few teams that follows the NFL rule that technically beat writers are not really allowed to say who is with what guy. Nate Yankee tweeted this out the other day that technically, like, beat writers are not allowed to be like, these are the depth charts right now. They kind of have to make vague allusions to it. The real reason why Chark is up is because Quentin Johnston just is so ass. I mean, he is so ass.
That's like a pretty clean way to put it. Like, you don't need to say much more on it. He ain't it, man.
To me, though, like, are we actually taking, like, I can't bring myself to click DJ Chark. I guess if you have Justin Herbert, I'm never gonna fault you for taking a stacked player with your quarterback. Like, that's always fine for me. But like,
I like to take my zeros with style points, so I take Brennan Rice.
Yeah, I just can't. So I don't know. DJ Chark, to me, he's on this like sacrificial X receiver axis.
Yeah, totally.
He's somewhere on the M. You know, I wanted to compare him to T.
Where's T. Higgins?
I couldn't.
I've got a T. Higgins chart.
T. Higgins is just to the right of Gabe Davis on this chart. I couldn't quite squeeze him on here. But yeah, DJ Chark. I mean,
scaling issues.
His last 3 seasons, 13% targets per route run. That includes a season last year where he was quote unquote competing for targets with Jonathan Mingo and Adam Thielen, and he was at like 11%, 12% targets per route run. Like, all this dude does now is he just lines up on the line of scrimmage on the outside. They tell him to run deep. They occasionally throw him the ball.
Remember Jalen Guyton? Remember him?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's like Jalen Guyton, but I don't even think, like, you watch DJ Chark, he's not even like really fast anymore. I don't know, man. It's kind of sad compared to the player he used to be, but I don't think he's an NFL wide receiver at this point. So I'm pretty.
Also, Johnston's going to play some. He's going to mix in. So Chark's route participation is 70%, 65. Like, it's not a profile we're excited about from a talent perspective. I don't even know how much opportunity is really here from the routes. Kendre and volume. I mean, is it like a stacked thing where you're saying he's got a deep A dot. I just need him to catch a long bomb on the right week. Like that's okay. Like I guess as a Herbert stack, but I still am not that excited about it.
No, I mean, I actually think that's like the perfect way to put it is the sacrificial X. Like the first report we got was DJ Chark was playing with the ones. He can fill that X role, but it should have said he can be the X parentheses derogatory. Like we don't mean this in a fun, he's that dude way.
Yeah, it's not a fun X. Davis,
share my screen.
You've looked into some powerful stats.
Yeah,
on,
I have some deep analytics here. Sophomore seasons for DJ Chark and T. Higgins.
Can you make this a little bit bigger? I can't see just how the stats are for these players.
How do I make this bigger?
I can zoom in. I can zoom in on my screen. So we're just looking here at T. Higgins and DJ Chark. 15 games versus 16 games. This is sophomore seasons for these two. More touchdowns, more yards per reception. One Pro Bowl nomination for DJ Chark, and more fantasy points for DJ Chark than for T. Higgins.
I mean, you can't argue with the numbers.
When was this for Chark? This was like 2020?
That was that
out of nowhere.
This was each of their second seasons.
2019? This was forever ago, right?
Yes. No, this was like a whole different
weirdly, it wasn't that like Chark's fall off was so rapid. This wasn't even that long ago. This was like 2020.
He got hurt, right? I mean, I don't really remember, but he
had an ankle injury, I think. It was pretty serious. I think he had like a serious ankle injury.
Here's something I uncovered today. Yeah. Did you guys know that DJ Chark played for the Lions in 2022?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. I relearned that today. That was like the most forgotten stint I can ever.
That's why breakout season was in 2019. You're citing pre-pandemic stats right now.
And then, by the way, he was on the exact same team the next year. No real changes, and he got like out yards per targeted by Keelan Cole and Laviska Shenault and Chris Conley. It went south fast. For Chark.
Yeah.
Chark. Well, at least we know like that's where I'll draw the line with T. Higgins. I will not compare him to DJ Chark, but Davis will. So
there you go. That's a bit of an upset. I wouldn't have pegged that.
Yeah,
I knew there was a way to make his second season funny in this context. So that was playing to the bit of the show. No, I am brackets 100% serious about this. I am actually just straight up taking Brennan Rice over DJ Chark.
I mean, okay. I'm not really doing it because I don't think Rice is a lot to make the team, but
I think he's not going to be he's going to be a practice squad guy week 1.
Well, that's good. Take him over.
That's definitely someone I want to hammer in best ball then.
I'm not hammering him. But I'm just.
If I think he's on the practice squad, I'm taking 0 because I don't think you can score. As far as I know, when you're on the practice squad, you're not on. What is DJ Chark doing for you in week 4?
No, I agree. I'm not drafting Chark really, but
don't put me in a position to defend DJ Chark. The idea is that he's like MVS from 2022 when he had 2 usable games, and that's not.
I mean, the one like minor thing I'll say in favor of Chark is NFL coaches like view him as a full-time player. At least they have the past 3 years. Like hasn't done anything with on the field, but it's basically 3 straight years of 80% route participation.
That's true.
So that again, I think like
you should be all in on him. Like he's like basically Corey Davis and Devontae Parker.
He's Devontae. He really is. He's a memorial Devontae Parker pick.
He is. Devontae Parker is way better than DJ Chark. We don't need to get into that. But Rashod Bateman, speaking of terrible wide receivers, he's up 8 spots. No, I actually liked Rashod Bateman. He's up 8 spots from 171 to 163.
Just in time for his yearly training camp injury.
Exactly, yeah. So this time it counts with Rashod Bateman. He limped off the field today, I guess. So maybe this will throw a wrench in things. But he's consistently gotten camp hype throughout the whole offseason, like almost in the same way that Jameson Williams has. But I guess people are just not willing to go that far with Bateman anymore. Like we've been burned 1 too many times, whereas with Jameson, it's like we've only been burned 2 times, so we can be burned a third before we relegate him to the 15th round.
I'm not that into Jameson, but I think his excuses are,
way more legitimate.
Much more legitimate. I mean, coming off the ACL, the gambling suspension, maybe not having, the right attitude. And then he's entering year 3, and it was positive at the end of last season. And now it's been positive all off season. And, he's a year earlier in his career. Bateman is entering year 4 or year 5. I think year 5.
I think year 4.
Okay, year 4.
Yeah, year 4, I believe.
Because he got an extension. So anyway, but his path already is more concerning because he's a year older. But then also the end of last season, he wasn't good. So like I'm like, and he wasn't getting on the field a ton, and they weren't playing Odell Beckham. So I think there's a lot more reasons for caution here. I have been drafting some of them, but
all that being
rising,
said,
I think you got to say
I have
goodbye.
12% to be clear.
Well, you got to take him. You got to take him with Lamar. Like, what are you gonna do? I guess you don't have to, but I think he's a very good selection with Lamar, and I really only ever take him. But I think the right way to play this, if we're talking about round 18 guys who might give you 0, is Devontae Walker. Is
I take a lot of Walker. Yeah. I have 8% Bateman, so I'm not out, but I'm at 13% Walker. And price adjusted, just the much better.
I think I've got 16% Walker. I think now that Dortch is like a 17th round pick, he's the best 18th round wide receiver.
Yeah, I think
like
maybe
Walker
the hope for Bateman is that we saw last year they signed Odell Beckham to way too much money and then seemed to need to give him something to do. So they schemed him up a lot of first read targets. Like he had a pretty reasonable targets per route run, but that's just because they would put him out there and be like, this is a play for you. And then he wouldn't do all that much with it. But they did seem to really have a desire to get this guy involved in the offense. And now that guy is gone and they have signed someone else to probably more money than they're honestly worth. And maybe Bateman is a guy who they now see as, we need to start scheming you plays that are to get you the ball. Will he actually do anything with them? I don't know. Probably not. But they do seem to care. There's also the
cut-ups of him not being targeted when he's wide open and not being on the same page with Lamar. And this is his first healthy offseason, I guess, before today, and his entire career basically. So, there's something to the idea of this dude finally gets an offseason where he's on the same page with his quarterback, and the team finally kind of saying, all right, it's time for you to step up. This is a really weird comp, but maybe it's a little Njoku-ish where they had him behind.
I was thinking Aguilar, how Aguilar did the team switch and was finally good, but it's just you just needed a refresher. Basically, what Bateman needed. You can't. I mean, the team being all right, we're expecting this guy to step up, and we're playing it like he will step up is big. You don't want to pay too much for that, but I think there is something to it. So he's kind of getting to the point though. Every time I'm all right, I'm starting to warm up to Bateman now. He rises in price, and so I've been even with the field. I think I'll probably fall behind the field as he continues to rise.
Yeah. And those, to the point of, again, you don't need to compare him to Jameson Williams, but in terms of the excuses, Bateman's excuses are maybe less obvious, but he did have that Liz Frank injury 2 years ago, and then he was battling that all offseason last year, came into the season not healthy, and people were saying by the end of the year that he was running his routes a lot better. It did not translate into fantasy production, that's for sure, but there at least is some alibis for Bateman and why he hasn't produced throughout the start of his career. And I just think the price is right for Bateman. If you're going to bet on a guy who hasn't really done much all of his career and you're just kind of betting on him for the routes and the offense, I think 165, whatever ADP is totally fine. I'm definitely taking him on Lamar teams. And I've been taking him as a standalone player as well in that range. I think he's a pretty solid value.
Yeah, you're getting a piece of the Ravens offense, which we know can put up big weeks. So
yeah. And there's not a whole lot. Again, Duvernay's gone, Odell is gone. There's some room there for a little bit more consolidation. Maybe it's not just sort of the 3-man rotation between those three, and Bateman really earns a full-time role this year. Dobbins is the next guy who's up here. He's up 8 spots by ADP, another sort of injury situation that's thrown drafters for a loop, but he is healthy.
I'm not falling for it, dude. I'm not falling for it.
He isn't healthy again.
I put healthy in quotes on the slide.
So I don't know if you guys saw, Coach Biganics had some clips from Harbaugh. Harbaugh is going to be extremely annoying. The way he's answering questions on injuries, he's Rashawn Slater had something, and he wouldn't say what. He was like, I'm not going to categorize it. They were like, what part of his body?
Because he is used to the college rules where you don't have to.
Yeah. He's like, I'm not going to categorize what it is. He kind of like, at one point they got him to act it out and he kind of like grabbed at his legs. It was probably a hammy. So I think he actually kind of accidentally gave it away. But he's like refusing to say what he injured.
I already hated the Chargers. Like,
he wouldn't answer the timeline. They're like, how long? Like, is it a day? Is he gonna be out? Are you gonna be managing this for weeks? And he's like, I'm not gonna categorize it. And that's what I'm saying. That is the words that I'm saying. It's like, great. This is gonna be a lot of fun. Now, J.K. Dobbins is one of these players who missed, I think, yesterday. Gus isn't practicing. He said he wasn't aware that he had offseason surgery, but I think he did. So I don't know what's going on there. Are you guys familiar with The Secret Life of Walter Mitty? That movie?
Yeah.
A Ben Stiller movie. It's this guy, he loses this photograph and he has to go, and he's kind of like this wallflower type of dude. He's been like real reserved, and he has to go out and he searches all over the world for this photographer, this elusive photographer, for this valuable photograph. I'm about to start doing that for some Kamani Vidal reports. I'm ready to go.
I've got it.
To Afghanistan. I'm ready to go to Norway.
Someone offered to be a beat reporter for your website and you turned them down.
Yeah, that's a little less fun.
I've been pounding the pavement for Vidal. I've got all of it that's out there, and I'll just tell you, nothing good. Not one good. No working with Herbert in practice. No Greg Roman being like, oh, he's doing everything we've asked him. The kindest thing that's been out there is that Roman says that he's excited to see how Vidal plays with the pads on, but Jarrett Patterson has been ahead of Vidal with Herbert. So it's not great.
It's not great. I'm also not putting too much stock into like first week of training camp depth chart stuff.
Yeah, I don't really care, but
I agree. It's not like I would be nice if he was ahead of Isaiah Spiller and Jarrett Patterson, clearly, and that's not the case. But again, I don't want to bury him too much for that. Like last year,
I am
Devon
extremely frustrated with. Sorry, but it's like Dobbins and Gus Edwards didn't practice yesterday, and I'm not hearing anything about who the running backs were. Like, can you just tell me, like, a running back? I know, like, there might be some restrictions, but you can be like, nice cut by Jarrett Patterson while working with the ones. Can we get that? That would be really nice. They're not even out there. Dobbins and who is?
All it takes, Crane, is you pay that guy $50,000 annual salary to be a Chargers beat, your own personal Chargers beat reporter.
Reach back out.
This is a fixable problem for you. You can hire one of your own. But for what it's worth, Dobbins and Gus are back out there today. This is from Hayden Winks. Again, we're in order of running back through drills season. Today, it was Dobbins, then Gus, then Spiller, then Vidal. Again, for what it's worth, that's not necessarily the depth chart order. Maybe means something, though. And at least those guys are out healthy. But let's get back to the Dobbins part of the conversation. I think we've talked a lot about Vidal. Like, are we leaving any, flickering candle of hope on for J.K. Dobbins, or are we just like completely ruling him out? Because I've been a little bit torn on what to do with him. Start with you, Kyle.
I'm fine drafting him here because I know if I draft him now, if I took him in every draft, I couldn't even get up to like 6% because I have 0 to this point. Like stone cold. Yeah. There aren't a ton of players that if I search in both of my apps, they do not come up. He is one of them. And this price versus where it was 2 weeks ago is a difference in like $1 auction dollar versus $1.20 in auction dollars, like a denomination you can't even count. And he started camp not on pup/NFI, like he's out there. And I don't even think he missed practice. I think they limited him to individual drills, which like also for a veteran coming off of a big injury, I mean, like literally a career's worth of big injuries, probably are just going to keep pulsing him in practice. Like, yeah, you're not going to get a ton of full practices this early in the summer. And everything we've said so far points to this backfield being wide open. Like we cannot find Crane. I think someone tagged us in a video of Vidal taking a handoff, a super grainy, far away video of Vidal taking a handoff from Herbert. Now I can't even find it. Like the media is suppressing the Vidal video. But like Vidal's a whatever 5th, 6th round rookie. Like he could get cut. Like that stuff just happens to these guys. The 49ers cut a 3rd round rookie every year. So like Chargers can do it with a 5th or 6th round guy. And Gus Edwards is like a total jag coming off-season surgery. Like, we got to buy someone here. I do think like you have to buy someone, and they're all cheap. When Dobbins, steams up 30 picks because he makes a long run, fine. I took him 5 times and that's all I'm going to get. But at the $1.20 price, I think we have to be drafting someone here, and he's fine at this price.
I mean, the thing with all of these guys after Gus is, are they even going to make the roster? And Vidal, it's like, maybe not, but man, he could be really fun if he does. We see a lot of years, an unheralded guy step into opportunity and kind of become one of the guys you need. And Vidal has as big an opportunity to be that guy if he's good, but maybe he's not. And so that's, that would suck.
Limiting factor.
Yeah. Dobbins has the same setup. He's coming off the Achilles and 2 years off the ACL. So like, is he going to be able to be good enough to take over the role? But I think we should be open-minded to him being able to do that. And then if he's like less of a risk to get cut, which he seems like less of a risk, right? Like that would be the thing I've changed on the most. How likely is it that J.K. Dobbins gets cut? I think a lot less likely than I thought like 3 weeks ago. So I'm starting to warm up to him as an okay pick. And maybe he's even a good pick. Like I was willing to take on this risk with Vidal because of the situation. Why not take on the risk with Dobbins a little bit before he gets, if he rises a lot in price, then I'm not interested, but he's still so cheap.
Yeah. Like you said, 3 weeks ago, I was like, Dobbins might not be in the NFL anymore. Like they certainly aren't paying him like he's a meaningful part of their team. And no one else is willing to do that. And probably the only reason they did it is because he's a Nepo baby. He knows the Greg Roman offense, but he's out there. He's practicing. He looks fine enough. Like
I don't know if he looks fine. His calves are different sizes. The gait is weird.
I haven't seen the weird gait. Like the iconic weird gait video from a few years ago is bad.
So what'll happen?
The calf picture does look pretty damning.
What'll happen is he'll get injured in week 4, and then all the Twitter docs are going to be like, "We told you, dude. We told you, compensation injury." Yeah,
that's what I'm. That's what I'm thinking. Like, even if he starts the season as a starter, like we've just seen this so many times with these Achilles guys. Like, they just don't last.
Have we? Cam Akers was a playoff hero in the same year he tore his Achilles. He put up, I think it was week 16. He put up a massive score that week 16.
It was because he knocked like 2 or 3 of my teams I had. I was like, I only need to fade 30 from Cam Akers. There's zero way he does this to me. And I had like 2 teams that got knocked out of finals contention.
At this price, one game like that would be way more than enough. And I don't even know that it needs to happen in the playoffs.
Dobbins is vegan. Dobbins is vegan. I'm out.
Wasn't Arian Foster vegan?
He was, yeah.
When he sucked. He started. He went vegan. He went vegan, and then hurt his Achilles and was done.
Can we get a chart of when Arian Foster went vegan? Just craters.
Yeah. Not to nitpick the details of that, Crane, but that was so Akers tore his Achilles in the offseason of the 2021 season, then returned for the playoffs in 2022, and then it was that regular season after that where he had that huge week 16 game. So,
but that would be this season for Dobbins.
No, it would be it was like a full. No, it's like a full 8-month difference.
He tore his Achilles and then he returned later that season, which would have been last season for Dobbins.
No, that year he did not return in the regular season. He returned in the NFL playoffs that year.
Right, but then the following year was the spike week that I'm talking about, right?
2022, he would have been about 18 months removed from the Achilles when he had that crazy run from week 15, 16, and 17.
And Dobbins would be like 17 months removed or 16?
No.
Dobbins will be like 11 months removed.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think what Corinne you're saying though is if Dobbins does it in
I thought he tore his Achilles. I thought he tore his Achilles. Yeah, I'm talking about the fantasy playoffs. So I thought. Yeah, Dobbins wouldn't be 11 months removed. He tore his Achilles like week 1, so he'd be.
So he's a year.
He'd be like 12 or 13
instead of 18.
Crane is saying in the playoffs.
In the fantasy playoffs.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
The weeks we care about.
Those.
Yeah, I still think that it's a nitpick, but I think I'm right that it's like a 4-month difference. But
I don't think it is because it was bizarre. Maybe it was like July versus September. So
yeah, this is hurting my brain. I see your point though. He could just like the point you're
talking
making.
About the difference of like 2 months.
Yeah, the point you're making, which I think is a good one, is that Dobbins especially at this ADP, but he doesn't have to be good if he just like has the role and is getting that many touches. Like Cam Akers in 2022 was pretty terrible all season. He just kind of completely luck boxed into a huge spike week because he had the role. So yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, Dobbins, again, he has the multi-ligament ACL, MCL, hamstring tear before the Achilles. So he just has even more checkered injury history than Cam Akers. So I don't know.
His lower body stuff is like, man, I would retire. He must have a lot of dog in him. He has broken his leg. He's done both his ACLs and he's got the Achilles. I mean, it's really rough stuff. Here's my 60 IQ take. I even at these prices, I have basically no interest in Dobbins on underdog.com. If I want to start taking J.K. Dobbins, I'll take him in a redraft league where I can cut him after he hurts his knee again.
Yeah, and I should say I'm at 1% Dobbins. So this is like mostly me trying to stay open-minded kind of take of like, Am I missing something? Am I trying, should I be willing to mix this guy in now that the Vidal stuff?
Well, we all kind of missed something because we thought this was impossible. Like this ADP chase, we were like, he's making $50,000. He's like, it's not like we all were playing this the opposite way the whole time.
Exactly. So it's like, if the Vidal steam does not seem to be materializing so far, maybe it does later. Gus is like not someone it's going to be easy to get excited about ever. I mean, if Dobbins just kind of keeps on track to make the roster, is like a handcuff, he would be worth considering at this price.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Honestly, might be better that he's a handcuff. Let him continue to like heal up and meet
rehab.
That timeline we talked about where like, I don't know if this guy can play a full NFL season anymore. But if he's a backup running back who can play a few games for me at the cost of pick 164, like that guy is valuable.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Last thing I'll say, and then I'll move on. I do think like the headline here is that it's good news that Dobbins is much more likely to make the team than we originally thought. I still think we have to be wary of this is the second week of training camp. These veterans are almost always going to be, the quote unquote starters. And I would not rule out Spiller, Patterson, these other guys from carving out a role ahead of Dobbins. Like the pads haven't really come on yet. We haven't seen the preseason. So I'm not saying that like he's a lock to make the roster. I do think it's much more likely he's going to make it than what I thought originally, which is certainly good news.
Yep.
Well, not for me, but sure.
Yeah, no, actually not for me either, because I have none of him. But good for Dobbins. Good that he's coming back healthy. Chase Brown, I'm actually surprised this ADP rise is so small. He's only up 3 spots after reports that
there's no fast puppy open right now.
Is that what's going on? But yeah, I'm curious, Kyle, how you're reacting to this news that Chase Brown is working with the ones. Depending on who you talk to, Charlie Clifford, who I was not familiar with his game, but this has been the report that's going around that he continues to take the majority of the reps at running back with the ones. Curious if you've been adjusting your stance on Chase Brown.
I mean, no, but mostly because I've been drafting a ton of him. And until he really steams up, I'm like, I'll just continue to draft this guy. Like, I don't even want to say extremely talented, but just like spike week, potentially explosive guy who plays on an offense we want to target, whose competition is like veteran grinder Zach Moss, who's making like fine money. But actually the money kind of reminds me of what we saw, like Alexander Madison got extended right before Dalvin Cook left. It was like 2 years, $7 million, I think. And Zach Moss is 2.8, if I remember correctly. Like, a guy making $4 million on average is probably a good bet to see snaps, but like, is he a good bet to lead a team's backfield in carries when the other guy is potentially really talented? I don't know if he's a great bet to be that guy. And obviously he's the one who's more expensive right now. I guess we probably won't see this, but in my mind, it would be totally rational to just flip Chase Brown and Zach Moss ADP. Like, which one of these guys do I think is more likely
We're going to see it. That's going to happen.
if you think it's going to happen, like we need to get the last grasp of this guy.
How do you think?
I would
I'm literally
say,
entering drafts for Chase Brown and then getting sniped. I'm going in trying to get 100% exposure to Chase Brown and getting 33% exposure. That's the environment we're in right now.
All right, Davis, take your victory lap on Chase Brown. You've been showing great restraint so far, but
people are saying this might be my Liam year where all my takes just completely sunrun. And I hope they're right.
Who are those people, Davis?
Just people. Just people have been saying it.
It's more like in the ether. It's in the aura. It's the buzz
you can
kind
of feel it. You can feel it.
So Chase dodged the first big bullet, which was that they didn't select Trey Benson or even a Braylon Allen type, like a big-bodied guy. Even if Vidal or like Isaiah Davis was a Bengal, you'd be a little bit concerned. It's July 29th. This could always change. Samaj Perine is not a Cincinnati Bengal yet. So kind of every day I wake up and sort of thank the various deities across the earth that is true. This is where I've ultimately landed on this situation. The team decided Chase Brown is good enough as a rusher and a receiver to replace Mixon, but they needed to have a better insurance policy in case he can't hold up in pass pro, and that's why Zach Moss is there. Moss is there if they get to week 2 and Joe Burrow has been sacked 7 times through 2 games, and Burrow and Brown just keeps getting blown up in pass pro. Joe Goodberry stated exactly what you think, which is Moss is going to be Samaj Perine plus. Brown is not going to have Joe Mixon's workload where he's getting 18 carries and 6 targets a week, but it'll probably be more like 14 rushes and 4 targets a week. And the other thing is, for me personally, this is probably not something that applies to everyone, but I've got so much Chase Brown and so little Zach Moss that this actually is kind of nice for me, because now I'll be able to get Moss at a price that I think is appropriate. Whereas like running back 25, Zach Moss, I had no interest in. So I think the way to play this now is to, definitely keep taking Chase Brown. Now, if Chase Brown gets more expensive than like James Conner, maybe we can chill out now. But Zach Moss at like running back 33 pricing is going to be really strong. So that's how it is.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I was looking at the contracts for an article I'm working on for Austin Eckler and Antonio Gibson. It's very similar, which is one of the reasons I'm pretty high on Brian Robinson. I think, that these guys is a type of contract you bring in for kind of a solid, reliable,
what it is.
Passing down kind of backup type.
Yep.
Well, Zach Moss got that exact same contract. So
actually less than both of them.
Yeah. And at the time when I was first writing this up, I was like, well, I guess, one counter to this point I'm making on Robinson is that, Zach Moss looks like the starter in Cincinnati with this contract. Well, maybe he was never lined up to be this. Maybe they always kind of, unbeknownst to us, viewed Chase Brown as the 1A, and Moss, exactly like Davis laid it out, is kind of a really solid backup plan / guy they can trust and pass pro until they sign Samaje Perine once he gets cut. So
can we not whatever you believe in personally, who you listening, you watching, send it to your various people that you do not want Samaje Perine to be a Cincinnati Bengal. You prefer him to be a Jet. You'd prefer him to be a Buccaneer. Buccaneer would maybe be perfect for me because I'm not all the way bought in on Bucky Irving, but just anywhere but the Bengals.
Davis is going to unite the various faiths of the globe just to make sure that Chase Brown stays the unquestioned.
Yeah. And I like Samaje Perine. He went to the University of Oklahoma. He's a good dude, but just not of the Bengals. Even the
weather, like it's ugly in the Midwest that time of year, anyways. Go to Florida.
Even the Chiefs, he makes more sense for the Chiefs than he does for the Bengals.
That he does.
Yeah. I think also the advantage you have on him not going to the Bengals is, this Bengals front office, like they don't know how to do contract restructures. Like they never sign people to extensions. Like I don't trust them to like be able to get the money together to pay someone when it becomes a free. Like I don't think they've ever done like an offseason like that late in the offseason edition before. So
I really thought about you the other day. I was reading the comments of the Bengals training camp recap on The Athletic just to see what people were saying about Moss and Brown. And the entire comment stream was the fans being like, this fucking front office does not understand contracts. Why would they not just pay Jamar Chase? Why are we acting like this is a family-owned hardware store in 1963? Like, please, can we just figure this out?
Well, here's a concern. Have we considered they are not extending Jamar Chase because there is a potential soon-to-be free agent running back from Denver who will need money to play for the Bengals?
They got to make that money work.
They're saving the T. Higgins and Jamar Chase money for Samaje Perine. That's true. Let's get here to some fallers. I think this is the most dramatic rise either way, rising or falling ADP. Kendre Miller down 15 spots, pick 145 to 160, based on Dennis Allen, head coach of the Saints, basically saying that he needs to fight for a roster spot. He's so pissed off at Kendre for always being banged up. Start with you, Kyle, as the guest. Is it Jover for Kendre Miller?
Yeah, I'm gonna start with this guy. Dennis Allen hates this guy, and it's not like he's so good. Like, it's not like, oh well, Kendre flashed so much as a rookie. We just gotta leave the candle on for him. He didn't play as a rookie, and that was part of the reason why Dennis Allen hates him, is he didn't play as a rookie. So yeah, like your coach he's telling us he doesn't think you are on the field enough to make the roster. Cool, done. Didn't need to hear any more.
Well, if you want to hear more, he's talking glowingly about Taysom Hill. Dennis Allen hasn't said a kind word about anybody all offseason on the Saints, and he won't stop talking when they bring up Taysom Hill. They're like, do you have a concrete plan for this guy? He's like, the concrete plan is he's going to get the ball. That's the concrete plan. He's going to be back there. Sometimes he'll pass the ball. Sometimes he's going to be running routes. Sometimes he's running routes from the backfield. Sometimes he's getting handoffs from the backfield. Taysom Hill's getting the ball. He's done everything we asked him to do. And they asked him about Kendre Miller. He's like, yeah, his hamstring got injured again. And I don't even know if he's going to make the team now.
I've never heard a coach. I don't think I've ever heard a coach talk about a second-year, third-round rookie pick by being like, he's like talking to him like how I talk to my dynasty teams. He's like, availability is the best availability. I mean, it's crazy to just be like, I'm done with him. I'm done with this guy.
Here's a note that Sacrilegious shared in our Discord for the rankings. Jordan Mims practicing ahead of Kendre Miller.
Yeah. Here's another stat.
We're learning Jordan Mims.
I don't even know who Jordan Mims is.
I don't either.
It was a name learner for me. Yep.
He played a name learner.
Fresno State with Ronnie Rivers together.
We're getting name learners. I mean, this is bad. This is like doghouse guy who didn't play his rookie season. I think we're 10 spots behind ADP as we sit here right now, and I'm like figuring out exactly how much more
I'm just like, there's actually not even a price to overcome these vibes. Like, I'm taking Dylan Laube over Kendre Miller.
J.K. Dobbins or Kendre Miller?
J.K. Dobbins, no question.
I just after that whole conversation, I just was on the clock in a slow draft. I just took Dobbins for like one of the first times, like 3 minutes ago.
But like Roshan Johnson or Kendre Miller.
Roshan, not
Herbert. Yeah, Herbert, Elijah Mitchell. All those guys are so much
easy
better picks.
Yep. Will Shipley or Kendre Miller.
Okay, that's a good line. That's a good line.
I think that's where we're in that range now.
Yeah. Here's another funny one. Okay, so week 3 last year, both Kamara and Jamal Williams were
out,
unavailable to play. Who led? Kendre Miller was healthy, active. Who led the team in snaps?
I know this, and it's not. It's so annoying that I'm not going
to. Saints nepotism.
Tony Jones.
Tony Jones.
They trusted Tony Jones with the
Kyle. Let's go. Dig deep.
That was crazy.
Kendre Miller.
That's a blurber right there. That's a professional blurber.
Yeah.
I think so. Kendre was hurt. I don't even know if he was like hardly available for that game because he was hurt all last offseason too.
He played 33% of snaps in that game and then played in week 4 after that. So I assume he was healthy.
Yeah, I don't know about healthy. He was active. And then he hurt his ankle. But like, this is the problem. Even when he's active, not like, I don't mean to be mean to the guy as well. He's got enough people being mean at him. But like, this is why Dennis Allen doesn't like him. And he got hurt again. He had an ankle injury later in the year.
Kendre, I thought, was a pretty intriguing prospect. And there's a lot of opportunity there. But like, we just have to listen to the guy who's ultimately in charge of deciding whether or not he sees the field.
Yeah,
like
disseminating how often he gets the ball.
Yeah, it's because it's not like he's, with some of the stuff like, hey, a guy's going to be out there. He's like really talented and he's flashed. And it's like, is there a question of whether or not he'll be the 1 or the 2? Like, I'm willing to bet on that guy. I just described Jalen Warren kind of thing. But if it's like, No. He'll be the trusted backup because he's better than the coaches think. Like, that is a dangerous bet.
Yep.
Yeah. And the other side of this is Kamara. He's up a couple spots. I think that's just the other side of the coin of Kendre being down. People are reacting by putting Kamara up a little bit. I think you guys on your ranking spot, Crane, had a great conversation in Kamara, so I don't want to go into too much detail there. I will say, like, in PPR sites, I am open to Kamara, assuming he's around 60 to 70, like in certain builds. And the only reason for that is just like, as bad as he looks in the efficiency metrics, I think his role is like much safer than his age and declining efficiency suggests, just because of this team. And you can point to some positive notes with the new coaching staff, with Clint Kubiak coming over for San Francisco. He did a really good job of scheming up Christian McCaffrey with pre-snap motion, lining him up in the slot, in San Francisco, if you give him any credit for the Shanahan stuff over there. So I just think, like, it's ugly, it's disgusting, but in PPR, like, there is a ceiling with Kamara at the right price. I'm not so sure about underdog PPR, but
I would never say this before the hour mark of this show, but I have taken Kamara a couple times.
Yeah, I mean, I've taken him a couple times.
I think
gross,
he's a terrible pick, and I think it's likely to be one of those things where, like, I got a team through to the semifinals, and I'm like frantically checking if the team is any good, and I see that Kamara is one of my running backs, and I'm like, well, you just had to diversify, you idiot. You could have just taken a good player instead, but yeah, I am taking him a little bit.
I mean, he had 18 PPR points a game last year, more than Mostert, A-Chain, Pearsall. Yeah. At some point, you just got to, like, say it's not that bad a pick at cost, especially in PPR. Like,
well, just always remember what they took from us. Taysom could be eligible at tight end on underdog, and the deep state shut it down. So,
yeah.
Honestly, I don't know, man. On underdog, but what if Taysom goes back to tight end on FFPC?
Well, the thing is he specifically is so much less valuable in a format that rewards extra points to tight end. Like, obviously you still want him on FFPC.
Yeah.
But I mean, but he's not going to have that many receptions. Taysom's value is all touchdown related.
He's a running. Can we all just come together and list Taysom as a running back, please?
Yeah, he is literally a running back. I don't know why.
Though. Like, sometimes you got to optimize for fun. Listing him as tight end is kind of fun.
Listing him as a quarterback is no fun at all.
Yeah,
no, I mean that's
zero.
the worst.
That's
easily
the
worst.
Yeah. Let's have a
look.
I'm trying to bring the people together.
Sam, real quick before we move on, I had a commenter open my third, fourth, and fifth eyes on YouTube this week.
Oh shit,
wow. Guys! This is the most. So like the Saints list him as quarterback basically to cheat. It's like, So listen to this shit. You guys are not. The commenter was like, what if their way of cheating doesn't have anything to do with the third quarterback emergency rule? What if it's to have another guy on the field who's got the mic in his helmet?
Oh,
is that legal? What?
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't think that's
my gut. That's very not.
But what if? Have you thought about it? Because we don't know.
But I'm saying I don't think
all right. We'll
legally.
We'll look into the mic rules.
There's one guy with the mic. I don't think you're allowed to just like put. Right.
Well, wouldn't all the quarterbacks have the functionality in their helmets?
I don't.
No, my guess is he's literally not allowed to wear the helmet.
All right.
Only one green dot per team on the field, says Nez.
All right. My third eye was open and you guys closed it. Whatever.
Yeah, close that fifth eye. That fifth eye doesn't need to be open. It's way too many eyes.
Closed.
Can they switch it? Could they switch it back and forth between Carr and Taysom depending on the play call?
They
Yes,
probably could.
Yeah, probably.
Reasonable.
And maybe there's a little toggle in there, they turn
the
Taysom
toggle.
The Taysom toggle.
Also, notice this is
just a little switch that says
this is the team that is caught for cheating, though. This is the same organization that is on the record as getting punished for cheating.
I like that the idea is that, we're comfortable cheating, but we still have to list him as a quarterback. Like, we don't want to go that far.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. I'm trying. Trying desperately here.
Yeah, this train is long off the rails. I don't think.
Yeah. CEH, we got to talk about him. This was, I think, like some of the most concrete news of the last 2 weeks that it is not an open and shut case for the Chiefs running back 2 job. Deneric Prince has been, I think, pretty consistently taking snaps for the first team before CEH. Now CEH has still been taking snaps for the first team, but it has been Prince first, according to reports. We'll kick it to our Chiefs correspondent, Davis Maddock, who looks like he's trying to screen share something. Davis, what's your breakdown?
Bring the screen share in. These are the generic Prince comps. Let's stop when we've heard of someone. Let's just stop when we've heard of someone.
Marshawn Lloyd.
Marshawn Lloyd. All right, we got one guy that we can comp him to.
Did you put the draft capital in here or not?
There is none.
He's 0.
Oh wow.
It'd be 0.
Can you give him 80? Let's give him the same 80 as we gave what's his face?
That's
Estime.
You know what? That's a good bit. So let's just do that. That is Corey and I like that. Some other guys.
Oh God.
Some other bad players. Bad players I have heard of. Damian Harris.
Zamir White.
Niall Davis was honestly railroaded. Niall Davis could have been a good NFL player. He got railroaded.
Bryce Love, man. I've drafted so much Bryce Love.
Honestly, same.
Oh, that one hurts.
Raquel Armstead was gonna be James Robinson before he got COVID.
Before he got long COVID.
Yeah.
Christian Michael, I drafted a ton of. I mean,
Christian Michael is the comp I've heard floated in the ether for generic.
Christian Michael is why I'm not a tape guy, basically, because that guy, no one has ever looked better to me on tape than Christian Michael. So I was like, I better stick to the stats.
I'll just say this. I think the reports are, to me, like consistent enough that it's real, that like they probably are planning on having Prince be their second running back, but also. We did do this last year, and they got into games, and Prince stunk so bad in preseason. Yeah. Like, was whiffing on every pass block, like, could not gain a yard. Like, it was really bad. And that would vibe with what he did at Tulsa University, where he was unable to significantly outproduce guys named Steven Anderson, Shamari Brooks, like to the point that I don't believe he ever led his college team in rushing, which is weird.
Is that bad?
Yeah. I mean, I think we are all familiar with a running back guy who's not a prospect, but then it just doesn't matter because he ends up in a favorable situation. This could very much be generic Prince.
I mean, that was literally
Pacheco. I mean, that was the argument with Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
But
Pacheco.
Pacheco at least was like the leader of his team. It's just that the team was so bad, right? It was like slightly different.
A real Bo Melton situation, if you will.
Yeah. I mean, his college profile I thought was pretty bad, but then he had the 4.3 speed and lands on the Chiefs, and so you kind of just be like, I guess maybe. And then obviously it's been a smash. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, Prince just not being CEH has made me intrigued. Like you're not CEH and you're running ahead of CEH, so. But it sounds like, because I was going to ask if the fact that CEH looked like the locked-in 2 made Pacheco look like more of a target to me. If it's anyone but CEH, I get a little more nervous about Pacheco.
Yeah.
But what you're saying about Prince makes me less nervous about Pacheco.
I mean, they cut him last year. He is definitively probably not good at NFL football.
Well, I don't know. I mean, he was a UDFA, didn't make the team his rookie season. Then he gets brought back. He's the number 2. That guy could be good.
I don't know. UDFA didn't make the team as a rookie. Sounds bad.
Yeah, that part sounds bad. But then if he gets brought back and is the number 2,
no, dude, they were playing LaMichael. They played LaMichael Pirine over him in a playoff game. I'm wondering if maybe this is.
It does feel like a psyop. Generic Prince feels like a bit of a Andy Reid psyop.
Yeah, definitely.
It's been 2 years in a row of this,
and they're doing all the Tony at running back. Rashee Rice is getting carries. Like, to me, that sounds like we have one good running back we like, and our cap situation is so miserable, we literally would just, like, we can't bring in a veteran and pay him $3.2 million.
Yeah. It's the only reason Ronald Jones didn't get brought back.
Exactly, yeah.
I think is he not on the practice squad?
I don't know.
There's no way.
No, we would have heard that name. So my take on this in terms of like actionability and how you play it is I don't want to take either of them right now. Like if I was like gun to my head, maybe 20th round of DraftKings, like Trey Sermon's gone, Tank Bigsby's gone. I think I'm still going CEH over Prince, but it's like it's very close.
You can't do that anymore. People are taking Prince now.
Yeah, but I don't know, man. Like it just feels like I think the Chiefs kind of know what they have in CEH, and they just kind of want to like try out these other guys to see.
That's how I've evaluated it.
Yeah,
that's how I did. I was evaluating it that way, but now I'm starting to think it's just Prince. He keeps rotating in ahead. Like, seems like he's like it's not like CEH is getting his days and then Prince is getting his days and then they're trying someone else out. Like I think that's still possible, but
how many days
see
of Prince being
game.
the number 2 until he just is the number 2 would be the question that you're
right.
kind of towing around, because like, yeah, sure, 1 or 2 times. Let's see what we have in Prince. 3 or 4, 5 or 6, 2 weeks. It's week 4 and we're like, they'll bring CH in as the RB2 soon enough. The playoff stretch comes around. Like there is a number of days in which I will believe Prince is just clearly the RB2. And given how bad CH is, that number should kind of be low.
Deneric Prince or Kendre Miller?
Prince.
Oh God. Probably Prince.
Yeah, it's Prince.
Yeah.
Ronald Jones.
Yeah, I agree.
No, Kadarius Toney's really my answer to this question, and I don't care. I think they're serious about it. I really think they are going to be like, we just got to get something out of this guy.
Chiefs RB2 certainly still worth monitoring. That's like the not number 1, but one of the top 10 things I want to see in preseason. See how that shakes out.
I just pulled up Kadarius Toney, and I have a note in my rankings, and the note I think must be from last year. It says try to stay at 6% at most. Good note.
That's right about where I'm gonna. That's right about
note,
where I'm
old
gonna
man.
end.
Tony last year was, I mean, that's the Jameson Williams memorial pick, Kadarius Toney in the 7th round last year. Let's talk about Ricky Pearsall. He's down 7 spots. He was on the NFI list. I think if I remember correctly, he was activated off that maybe a couple hours ago.
Yeah, literally today.
So I expect this to be a temporary dip. But yeah, curious, Crane, what's the stance on Pearsall now? I know we've talked about him a bit earlier in the offseason. Are you still bullish on him at, this price? You were when he was more expensive, so I assume you still are.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Pearsall is like, you gotta get him. But I do think he's a pretty good pick in a format where you're trying to marry floor and ceiling. Is Pearsall gonna, make the team? 100%. His first round pick, right? Is he gonna be kind of the next man up if there was an injury? I think pretty clearly would have a role if there was an injury to any of these other guys. Is there a chance that he gets scheme stuff throughout the season? Yeah, he was their first round pick. So you've got a floor of, he could do some interesting stuff. You have the ceiling of contingency. I don't think Ayuk gets traded. I think that's a very low probability. But, I mean, obviously, if that were to happen, Pearsall's stock shoots way, way up. So if you're getting him in around 150, I just think it's hard to see exactly how it plays out. But it's in retrospect not going to be that difficult to be like, oh, right, Kyle Shanahan's first round receiver who gets open in the intermediate part of the field and is good after the catch was a good pick at 150. So I'm trying to just zoom.
You know both exactly how it beats you and why it's the dumbest pick imaginable. On both hands, you're like, Ricky Pearsall, hand up. I lost. I get it. And I had 70% Ricky Pearsall and he had 0 scoreable weeks. I get it. That's the way she goes.
Right. Yeah, but I mean, it's cheap enough where I just think I'm at 13% Pearsall. He's not a huge part of my portfolio, but I'm gonna be overweight a first round pick at this price.
Yeah, Kyle, is there leg up rankings team consensus here on Pearsall, or what are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I mean, that's where I'm at with him. It's kind of a different flavor of the Xavier Legette. Yeah, man, I didn't like his profile. He can't get separation in training camp. I post all this stuff in the leg up Discord and should we move him down? I'm like, nope, it's fine. We should still draft him. At the end of the day, when you can get players who the NFL in mass thought was extremely talented and are young, super cheap, you kind of just got to take your medicine, even if you're I don't like Xavier Legette. I don't think Ricky Pearsall is going to play much. It's, as Crane said, it's not easy to see how you win, but looking back in retrospect, be Debo never healthy. He tweaked his ankle and Ricky Pearsall played a bunch. Yeah, that, as it turns out, makes sense. Something like that. But
here's
it's a lot of small percentage chances that all add up to where Ricky Pearsall's probably just a good bet at cost.
Here's one way to think about why Pearsall, I think, is a good pick. In redraft, is Pearsall a good pick? No. He's a roster clogger. You're going to hold him forever. You're gonna need to churn that spot, right?
He's like a
you're gonna have
to get cut.
You're gonna have the worst debates with your co-managers too about whether you should cut them or not. Like it's gonna waste hours of your life.
Sam week 2 is gonna give us his route participation and tell us to cut Pearsall. We can't be drafting him, but we're gonna have when we get to this part of the draft in best ball, you can start to think about which players are likely to be the biggest priority waiver wire ads over the course of the season, and Pearsall is at the very top of that list of a guy that you could see if things break right, people spending $400 in FFPC, $500 to get Pearsall. So
absolutely,
as a non-running back, like that's not super common. So that's where I talk about the floor of like, yes, it's probably in a lot of cases he doesn't really do anything for you. So in that sense, the floor isn't that great. But like he is a good bet to be relevant over the course of an entire season. And when we're trying to fill our roster with, non-zeros, taking shots on those guys, we think like, man, this guy could be like the waiver wire ad of the season in a locked roster format is kind of interesting.
Yeah. I agree with all that on Pearsall. I think, pick 150. I think he's definitely a good pick. I just say like maybe pay attention to what type of wide receiver room you have at that point. I think there's certain builds where he makes a ton of sense. If you already have a lot of solid, veteran wide receivers that project for a lot of routes, I think Pearsall is a great addition. If you maybe have a rookie heavy wide receiver start, maybe you have some more like question mark guys like Jameson Williams, stuff like that. You need more stability. You might want to look elsewhere. But again, pick 150. It seems like the price is certainly right there for Pearsall. Let's talk here, Calvin Ridley. I don't want to attribute too much of his fall to news. I think this is sort of just like a market trend overall. You see Christian Kirk also on this list, Terry McLaurin also on this list. Kind of the mid-range wide receivers across the board are moving down a couple spots as probably more casual running back heavy drafters get on the platform. I did want to have a little bit of a Ridley discussion here. I know like kind of the consensus amongst our bubble is that we're out on Ridley. Start with you, Kyle. Like, is there a point, he's only fallen 2 spots here, but is there a point maybe in the 60s or 70s where you're more interested in him, or what's your overall stance on how to play this fall for Ridley?
Like you said, the fall isn't enough. It's a few spots. And like, I just think DeAndre Hopkins is like a meaningfully better pick because I think he's a meaningfully better player. Hopkins was really good last year. And Ridley, maybe you want to say it was scheme. Maybe you want to say it was the having not played football in a very long time. But that also means he hasn't been like meaningfully good in a long time. He wasn't terrible last year, but he looked like he should be a team's distant number 2 receiver. Like he did not look like he was capable of being a team's number 1. And DeAndre Hopkins looked like a certified stud number 1 on a really bad team. So to me, I doubt he falls to a place where I ever think like I'm going to be drafting even 8% of him. If he falls 6 spots, the amount of him I have will go up, but he's so far from where I think he is a meaningfully good pick, or at least a meaningfully average pick, that it's going to be real tough for me. And he's just going to almost certainly be a player I leave the summer with as a fade.
Yeah, I generally agree that Ridley is a fade. I did want to dive in a little bit to the Ridley versus Hopkins discussion because I think a lot of it comes down to you look at Ridley versus Hopkins stats last year, and Hopkins' targets per route run was a lot higher. I do just want to point out that these are the guys that were on the field when DeAndre Hopkins was running routes. It was Chega Okonkwo, Nick Westbrook-Akeen, Treylon Burks, Chris Moore. Like all these other wide receivers were sub 14% targets per route run guys. And again, this is a little bit circular. Like you could argue that's because DeAndre Hopkins is so good, or you could argue it's because those guys are so bad. But I think it's pretty undeniable. Calvin Ridley still at 20% targets per route run. Like I think that's pretty solid, but he did have much stiffer competition in Evan Ingram, Christian Kirk, Zay Jones. It's not like those guys are world beaters, but they're certainly just like way, way better wide receivers than what Hopkins had to deal with. So again, I think Ridley and Hopkins should be priced like side by side, and they're not. So I do agree with you guys that Hopkins is the better pick at ADP. I'm just not entirely sold that the book is shot that Hopkins is a better wide receiver than Ridley. Also last year, like Ridley was asked to line up on the outside on the line of scrimmage like for much higher percentage of his routes than even Hopkins was. So the offense was not like schemed around him in a friendly way. And maybe it is this year in Tennessee. But yeah, I just want to show that side of things. And I think that the targets for route run stuff on these guys last year is like a little bit misleading when you just look at the raw numbers.
I mean, it makes sense. I think Ridley is overpriced. Although I did actually get him on a team the other day, opened up a slow draft, and he was still there at like pick 73 or whatever. So he finally was where I had him ranked, and I was like, sure, whatever, I'll take you. But to me, he should be going after Hopkins and Odunze, and he doesn't. So that
after like Deontay Johnson.
Yeah.
You know?
No, this might seem crazy, but I actually have more optimism that Levis is him than I do Bryce Young. I think Bryce Young's him percentages are like sub 0.05%. I think Levis, I mean, we did this on the show last week. Like the Bortles season from Levis is so tantalizing that I find myself selling it. Like I just am like, man, really might happen.
Yeah, or even like a Trubisky season, like a fun bust season. I'm with you.
Fun bust season.
I think Levis has fun bust seasons in him for sure.
Bryce does not.
Bryce probably doesn't, but I think he has, feeds a number one seasons in him, and like could Bryce kind of be like an Andy Dalton type where he just is starting to get the ball out? I think he could do that. It's not going to be that fun for Bryce, but it could be really good for Deontay. I've started to come around on Deontay as the coach speaks. Been really, really bullish on him being the number one guy, which was I wasn't 100% sold on when they brought him in. Like, is he going to get fed targets the way he's always been fed targets in Pittsburgh? And it seems like the answer is yes there. So Ridley, to me, like Sam, I think your argument on Hopkins is convincing as far as the targets per out run goes. I still like him a lot because the routes are going to go up so much. So you get a drop in targets per out run. We get a lot more routes. We know he can produce with this quarterback, which is nice, given that the quarterback is not very good. We're like literally saying, I hope he's Mitch Trubisky. So that's obviously not that great. But Ridley's the guy, like he's going, like, I don't know, is this target competition that much weaker? Hopkins can earn targets clearly, and Tyler Boyd is, I don't know, like, is he an Evan Ingram level target earner as a wide receiver? I mean, if Boyd had tight end eligibility, we'd
that one's a
be
stretch
interested.
for me.
No, wrong. And you would be slamming the button on Tyler Boyd's projection right after Pat Freiermuth. You'd be slamming it.
There we go. I mean,
Evan Ingram had 114 receptions last year. What did Tyler Boyd have? Like 50?
50 receptions.
Boyd,
let me tell you.
in yards per route run, behind, just ahead of Elijah Moore, Nick Westbrook-Ikine.
But where would he be at? Where would he be at amongst tight ends in yards per route run?
Probably
still bad.
Here, the other thing for Ridley that, again, like, I'm just calibrating to how I hear people in like our bubble talk about him, where it seems like Ridley's the worst pick on the board. The other like sort of positive thing for him is that I think the Titans are one of the teams that's going to have the biggest increases in rate of pre-snap motion from last year to this year. Mike Vrabel's offenses were not running any pre-snap motion. They bring over Brian Callahan from Cincinnati. It's actually really interesting. If you look at the Jake Browning offense compared to the Joe Burrow offense, there was a huge increase in rates of motion, and they basically schemed like Jake Browning to be a top 10 quarterback by EPA per play.
People forget. Danny Carter doesn't forget.
Yeah,
Danny Carter does not forget.
And I think that was like fully schemed, but I think we have to give Callahan like a lot of credit for that. And the way he's talked about Ridley, these are Callahan's words. You're looking at a very similar role that Jamar Chase played in terms of Ridley's ability to move around the formation, use him in motion. I think people like took that quote and railed on it because they're like, "Oh, Ridley in the Chase role."
No, I think they took that quote and ran with it. That's the only reason to be drafting him where he's going.
Exactly, but I don't think it's like, again, I think this pre-snap motion stuff is fairly important, and the fact that the head coach, again, that was very successful in using pre-snap motion in Cincinnati, is talking about Ridley like that. I do think they have a vision for him in scheming up touches, not using him the way he was used in Jacksonville, where he's just lined up X wide receiver, go beat your man deep. Like that's how Ridley was used last year. I think it's just going to be way different. So using last year's stats is just like not quite the right way to look at Ridley this year, in my opinion.
I mean, okay, but like if we were using last year's stats, like he should be like a 9th or 10th round pick.
Yeah, well,
like,
use his 2022 stats. Is there anything we could? Oh no, he didn't play football.
Like
then. 2021. Well, he hardly played football then.
Again, though, like was it last year? He had what, like 5 or 6 games of 20 plus PPR points. Like he was a good spike week player. He led the league in yardage on defensive pass interference. You know that he obviously doesn't get credit for statistically. Like I don't know. I don't really buy the argument that he was that bad last year.
Brett Jones says Judy is a better pick than Ridley. Like that's on it. Like if we're just looking at, if we're not baking in optimism around, you know, he's in the Jamar Chase role and he's actually still really good from 2020 stats and all this stuff. Like that's where we're talking about him. You know, I think to me, we're paying a pretty big premium on the optimism. If we just look at like the profile, what he's done, when he did it, and what he's done recently, he really should be going around Judy. Now, I'm not saying like we shouldn't bake in any of the optimism, but to me, it seems more than priced in, like way more than priced in.
Yeah, I mean, the guys who beat him in yards per route run, I get like he was competing with meaningfully better target competition. Like that was a pretty good team in terms of like the depth of guys, but it's like Adam Thielen, Tyler Lockett, Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, favorite of the show, T. Higgins, Demarcus Robinson. Like he's in a list of just total, they're not bad. Like I don't think those guys are bad at football, but they're like true number 2 and 3 receivers. And now his quarterback, the median outcome for his quarterback is he's like really bad. Because he's a second round pick who looked bad.
Right.
Yeah. But I just think like the yards per route run with Ridley, like he had to be top 7 in the NFL in routes last year. So like you're kind of a little bit counting a volume stat against him. And again, just like games of more than 20 PPR points last year, he had a game of 24, of 21, of 31, 20, 26, 23. Like I would guess there's only 5 other wide receivers in the league last year that had 6+ games of, you know, over 20 PPR points a game. So at some point I'm just like a little bit skeptical of like counting the yards per route run against him. Like you add in the defensive pass interference yardage, and
I think we might have just backdoored into how we're wrong about Ridley, which is that he just literally runs about 97% of the routes. He run like because Nick Westbrook-Akine and all these other guys are like literally so brutal. So they throw the ball 577 times and Ridley generates 187 targets on those throws or something. Like it's just insane.
I feel like we just said that last year we're penalizing him because he ran so many routes. That's why he wasn't efficient. But now, what if he ran a lot of routes? Hear me out. What if he ran around a lot of routes?
Well, if you could just duplicate,
I'm just saying, like results based last year, like Calvin Ridley was a better asset to your team than like Jalen Waddle, just in terms of like percentage of times he hits 20+ points in your roster. And like,
damn, that's an InfoWars ass.
Yeah,
I know, but like,
I'm actually shocked you didn't have that chart already made. And just flipped to it. It's a real miss on your part. The thing I will say about Ridley is like I don't, in an environment where like if we were to get a hit on a wide receiver in the 6th round or the 5th round, it would be very valuable because they're hard to find. I think, you know, like all these guys are probably a little overpriced. Ridley, I think, is very overpriced. But it's not like he can't do it. And if he does it, it's going to have a big impact on your teams. So it makes me nervous to be this far out on Ridley. Like I can see him burning me, but it's still just really difficult for me to click on this guy where I'm like the type of arguments you're making, Sam, are like the types of things we normally reserve for double-digit round picks at least, and sometimes for like last round picks. Like, you know, this is like, hey, this guy might have a little juice left. Like, don't give up on him completely. Like this is an expensive player for us to be talking about adding back in defensive pass interference yardage. Like I don't really want to hear about that in round 5.
I mean, tell me the 18th round picks that had 6+ games of 20 PPR points.
I'm just saying, I don't like you're talking about DPI yardage in round 5. Like that is a lot. That is a lot to pay.
I'll admit the DPI yardage I probably shouldn't have brought up. That looks bad in retrospect.
That's you doing a bit.
But I mean, I don't know, man. Again, like this is just classic me playing devil's advocate. I definitely have a fade on Ridley, but I just had to push back. Like he's talked about a little bit too disparagingly.
I think the reason you're hearing the disparaging is because I feel like, I don't know who the Ridley drafters are, but they are a stubborn bunch.
They are all in this chat room. They are in the chat of ADP chasing. Yeah. They are adamant. Yeah. Adamant that
right. You're hearing about it, but it's not moving the market at all. Like his price has stayed consistent. So you're hearing from people who don't like the Ridley price, because it's generally people who do podcasts, but the people who don't do podcasts are like, you guys are wrong. I'm drafting Ridley.
Yeah, but I have to speak for the silent majority.
I guess. Well, they are wrong.
Pat, is this how it feel? Is this how it felt when I was like, we should move Brandon Cooks from 20 spots below ADP to 16? Except now I get to be on the other side of the window. It feels way better to be over here, to be honest.
My main point is just like sometimes you go too far with the yards per route run stuff, and just like again, it's a dumb point. I mean, Davis.
The call is coming from inside.
I was the first guy to invent looking at box scores. Just go check out some Ridley box scores.
No one thought to do this before, Sam.
Yeah, no one's looked into box scores before me. There's some good box scores in
there. That's definitely not moving the price. That's I guess what I'm saying is like
only
all the stuff
Sharks
you're saying is like it better be true because he's going to the 5th round. The 5th round. Yeah,
it's baked in. I just checked. I have 3% Ridley right now. So
okay.
But I'm guessing you guys have like literally 0.
I have literally 0. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Which I can see burning me pretty bad. So
I'm willing to take the 4% exposure.
Burn me
I think Sam's probably right. We should have exposure blankets, but it's hard.
Instead of any Ridley, I just have another Chiefs wide receiver, and so if I just have another Chiefs wide receiver, then I'm not going to lose. You're coming to war with Will Levis's wide receiver 2. I have Rashee Rice. Guess what? I'm gonna win.
I honestly, like, I listen to Chip Chasing and I laugh at Davis's theory of just draft the same team 12 times or draft the same 12 teams. But with this one, like, I actually don't feel like Will Levis's wide receiver 2 can really destroy me at this cost. Like, I'm fine.
I'm not.
What about his wide receiver 1?
Yeah, I'm sure the coach that made.
Well, I take his wide receiver 1. I select his wide receiver 1.
I'm saying if we're wrong, like, how bad can it get? Because I do have 0%. I have $22 of Ridley through like 717 drafts. So that's
such a weird dollar amount. How do you even get to $22?
I don't know. There must have been a $7 in there or something. What did I do? Maybe 3 puppies and a $7 thing. I don't know.
I can't believe I didn't have this one ready either. This would
Ridley versus Higgins.
Yeah. All right, guys. That'll do it for today's show in terms of risers and fallers. Before we close out, let's do the closing line value game. Kyle, I did not tell you to prepare this, but do you have something prepared here for the largest closing line value riser by the end of draft season? If you don't, that's fine.
Yeah, I'll go. I thought about this a little bit. I'll go with Kyle Pitts. I think maybe I was like looking and I was like, oh, Dalton Kincaid, clear faller. But I do think this is an environment where people who do podcasts are saying elite tight ends. And then we're getting the Kyle Pitts erase the last 2 years narrative. He's just clearly a better pick than Dalton Kincaid. And he seems like a guy who, once he goes out and we're like, oh, he can turn, which direction can he turn? Can he not turn left or right? The first time we see this guy turn whatever direction he's not allowed to turn for the last year because some ligament in his knee was busted, like, seems like a clear riser based on the ceiling, and that in this environment, all we want to do is be chasing ceiling. Like, all of the dorks drafting these best ball teams are like, how can I win $1.5 million? And the more we look at it, I'm like, it doesn't seem like a guy like Dalton Kincaid is the guy that is going to win you that. Like, we're getting all of the, like, if this was a faller segment, boy, I'd have really crushed it with Dalton Kincaid. But I do think it's not quite a zero-sum game, but as he falls, someone like Kyle Pitts, who seems like the very obvious, like, well, if you ignore the bad stuff, which we love to do, we're doing it with Calvin Ridley. If you ignore the bad stuff, there's a real fun ceiling. Like,
we do love to ignore the bad stuff.
Kyle Pitts is that kind of guy.
That makes sense.
I like it. He's already pretty high, but he's definitely.
I think he flips Kincaid. I think that's gonna happen. So,
and he was close to outproducing Kadarius Toney when they were at Florida together. He didn't quite do it, but that definitely shows a level of untapped upside that you definitely want at tight end.
That ruined my show.
I will.
I've been waiting. I've had that stat in the back pocket for a
That's a
while.
home run. Sam just looked the ball in and just smooth swing, just crushed it right out of the park. That was a beautiful. Holy shit!
I will. I'll bum everyone out.
No, you don't have to. We just did that. It's fine.
Yeah, that's what Sam said.
Ezekiel Elliott.
Oh man,
Jesus.
Oh man.
That's a
Stephen
good
Jones. Stephen Jones doing the radio today. What does he say? Royce Freeman killing it. We'll see which one of Rico Dowdle or Malik Davis makes the team.
Come on, man.
See which one of Rico Dowdle or Malik Davis makes the team.
Who said that?
Stephen Jones, the executive vice president of the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh boy.
You're stretching the quote a little bit, but he said something kind of like that.
Can you give us the real quote, please?
Sure, I will. I will give you. Crane, you think it's going to make you feel better? It's not.
Well, I think it'll make me feel better than what you just said.
Cowboys executive vice president said on 1053 The Fan that veteran running back Royce Freeman has really impressed. They were surprised he was available when they signed him to a one-year deal in April. We were just talking about it last night at the scout dinner. What in the hell was he doing around out there? An interesting guy to just be sitting there. He's a great 2-3 combination in terms of what he can do as a backup. He's a big, thick guy, plays special teams as well. He'll be a good addition and great complement to Zeke. And then we'll let those young guys between Rico Dowdle and Malik Davis and those other guys battle it. That means that basically to him, Malik Davis and Rico Dowdle and like Hunter Lupke and these undrafted free agents are like all kind of battling for like 2 spots. It's not good.
That didn't sound very good. You're right.
It did. I promise you the whole quote is not any better than what I said originally. It's really not.
It does make you a little less worried about P. Ryan, but maybe they already got their P. Ryan.
It makes me a little bit less worried about P. Ryan. 100%. Yeah,
but
no
Zeke,
mention.
Yeah,
on.
That's a good one.
All right, Crane. What do you
Can I make us not bummed out? I'll take Chase Brown.
Oh, sick! I should have done that.
Yeah, I
Damn
waited
it.
for you. I let you have him if you wanted him. You had to take Zeke Elliott. Gross.
Well, I mean,
Chase Brown, brother.
Who's going to be higher in a week?
Chase Brown.
Zeke slappies just need a smidgen of daylight. Unlike how Zeke runs, they just need a sliver of daylight.
All right. I'll also capitalize on today's news. Not a pick I advocate for taking, but Alvin Kamara. I think the casual drafters are going to log in and see Alvin Kamara at pick 76 and say,
that's a good take.
Yeah,
say, what is this?
Yeah.
I think he's going to get a lot more expensive. So yeah, not a fun one, but that's my guess.
No, that's really not fun. That is kind of peak unfun.
Crane, why don't you just do another 30 seconds on Chase Brown? Like we think maybe that's
Yeah.
I mean, we've had the rug pull on a guy like Chase Brown. He's got
No, that's not what I meant.
Say
Say good
resume.
things.
Hang on. A thin resume. Yeah, I was a little bit more bearish than the general consensus because I feel like we've burned ourselves a bunch of times on this exciting young back who's going to have a big role year 2.
Normally they go the 1-2 turn though.
Normally
they go the 1-2 turn, or they don't have the role. It's so rare that it's like the coaches are like, yeah,
absolutely,
we love Chase Brown. Like
we love
he's our like starter. Like we can't wait to get him out there. Yeah. Like what? Like in the 120s? Like you guys felt this way?
No,
like,
normally it's
rare.
literally the exact opposite. They ask about the guy going in 120s, and the coach is like, I fucking hate that guy.
That just happened to me with Dowdle. Like I was like, I've been hammering Dowdle in the 120s, and then you're like, yeah, Dowdle, Malik Davis. I don't know, they're all fucking the same, but they're both behind Royce Freeman. Like, oh, right to the like I'm bleeding out. Like that is so deadly. I can't handle that. And then you're reviving me with Chase Brown, where they're actually like, yeah, he's like our starting running back. You guys knew that, right? He was our starting running back this whole time. It's just pure life. It's bottled life. I'm so happy.
My goodness.
All right. That'll wrap things up. Kyle, thanks again.
Tight show.
Yeah, nice tight show.
That was a nice tight 90.
Let me tell you guys, you nailed it.
Kyle, thanks again for joining us. You guys are doing great stuff over at Roto-World. Been really enjoying the podcast over there. Anything else you want to plug?
Yeah, I tweet out all my stuff on Twitter, but I have probably by the time most people listen to this, a training camp article coming out recapping the first week. So if you like what you got here, more of that. Roto-World Football Show. Yeah, that about does it. Both Davis and Corain have been on the Roto-World Football Show. So if you're seeking more ship chasing adjacent content, they're in the broader network.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
that's definitely one of my go-to weekly listens. Pat, what else do we have coming up on Leg Up?
Leg Up, we've got I'm working on an article on the running backs that I'm hoping to have out in the next couple days. Running backs in like round 7 through 12 kind of range. Daniel Raz is also working on an article we're hoping to have out later this week. Kind of also about how to attack the running backs in that pocket. Kind of a key part of drafts this year, so that'll be fun. And the Sidekick, we've got custom rankings we're going to roll out as a beta in the next couple days. So if you want to kind of experiment with custom ranks as we make sure we have all that dialed in, we'll have news on that very shortly. And also DraftKings is fairly imminent. I think maybe next week, this week, if everything just goes swimmingly in our dev process. So yeah, those are the big updates at Leg Up. Best ball rankings updated daily, dynasty rankings updated weekly, legendaryupside.com.
Awesome. And Davis, bunch of streams coming up this week.
Yes, the Badge Bros and Drew Dinkmeyer are going to be on tomorrow, and I have not gotten to Thursday yet, so that could just be a mystery. I mean, literally, who knows? Could be anyone.
Could be anyone.
And could be anyone. The call could be coming from inside the house. So be on the lookout for that.
Awesome. And yeah, only thing I have to plug, obviously ADP Chasing will be back next Monday. I'm trying to remember. We have both Levitan and Rotopat coming up the next couple of weeks. I think it's Levitan next week, Rotopat maybe the week after that. So that should be a good show. And also, I spent a lot of time looking at the pre-snap motion data from the past couple of years. I have an article up there on Establish the Run that dives into that and dives into sort of the fantasy implications of pre-snap motion, which is really spreading rapidly across the league, especially last year. So you can check that out if you have the ETR draft kit, I believe. But anyways, guys, thanks for joining us. We will see you next week.